Marcus Rodriguez was just dropping his 7-year-old son off at summer camp when he saw the car explode into flames, and without thinking, he ran straight into the fire to save a stranger's life. But when a dozen Hells Angels motorcycles roared onto the scene and their feared captain dropped to his knees beside the boy Marcus had just rescued, everything changed in an instant. What happens when the most dangerous biker in the state realizes that an ordinary single father just saved the one person who matters more to him than his own life? The alarm clock's shrill cry cuts through the pre-dawn silence of the cramped apartment, and Marcus Rodriguez's calloused hand slams down on the snooze button before rolling out of bed with the practiced efficiency of a man who's learned to function on 4 hours of sleep. The smell of instant coffee mingles with the faint scent of Danny's strawberry shampoo as Marcus shuffles past his son's bedroom, where 7-year-old Danny sleeps curled around a worn Batman plushie, the same one Sarah bought him 3 Christmases ago, back when their world made sense, and the biggest crisis was a scraped knee or a forgotten homework assignment. Marcus pauses in the doorway, watching the gentle rise and fall of his boy's chest, and feels that familiar ache settle in his ribs like an old injury that never quite heals. The photo on Danny's nightstand catches the hallway light. Sarah's smile frozen in time, her arms wrapped around both of them during their last vacation to the beach when she was still strong enough to chase Danny through the waves, and Marcus still believed in forever. "Morning, buddy," he whispers an hour later, as Danny stumbles into the kitchen, dark hair sticking up in impossible directions, brown eyes still heavy with sleep, but brightening at the sight of his father. "Pancakes?" Danny nods eagerly, climbing onto the wobbly chair they keep meaning to fix, the same one Sarah used to sit in while drinking her morning tea, and reading him stories from the newspaper about heroes and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Marcus flips 3 perfect circles on the griddle while humming the tune Sarah used to sing during Saturday morning breakfasts, when their biggest worry was whether Danny would eat his vegetables. And the smell of butter and batter fills the small kitchen like a warm embrace from the past. "Dad, do you think Mom would be proud of us?" Danny asks suddenly, syrup dripping from his fork as he speaks, and Marcus feels his throat tighten because this boy, this perfect, brave, impossible boy, carries so much wisdom in his small frame. "I think she's proud of us every single day, buddy. Every single day." The Honda Civic coughs to life in the parking lot of Riverside Apartments, its engine protesting another day of service as Marcus adjusts the rearview mirror to catch Danny's reflection. The boy's face serious now, as he buckles his seatbelt with the careful precision of someone who understands that safety matters more than speed. "You excited about camp today?" Marcus asks, turning onto Highway 9, as the summer sun begins its relentless climb over the valley, painting everything in shades of gold and possibility. Danny clutches his backpack, the same faded superhero design he's had since kindergarten, with patches where Sarah sewed up tears and reinforced the straps, and grins with the infectious joy of a child who still believes the world is more good than bad. Mrs. Peterson says we're doing science experiments today. Real ones, with explosions and chemical reactions, and maybe even rockets. Marcus laughs, the sound echoing off the cracked dashboard, where Sarah's hospital bracelet still hangs from the rearview mirror like a talisman. "Just promise me you won't blow anything up, okay? I need you in one piece when I pick you up." The intersection ahead shimmers with heat waves rising from the asphalt like ghosts of summers past, and Marcus rolls down the windows because the air conditioning gave out last month, and there's no money to fix it until the next construction job comes through. But Danny doesn't complain because he's learned that some things matter more than comfort. The radio crackles with morning traffic reports and classic rock, creating a soundtrack for their routine that's become sacred in its simplicity, just father and son, navigating another day in a world that sometimes feels too big and too empty, without Sarah's laugh filling the spaces between words. But today feels different somehow, charged with the kind of electricity that comes before storms and second chances. The black sedan appears in Marcus's peripheral vision, like a predator stalking prey, weaving through traffic with the reckless abandon of someone who's forgotten that cars are 2-ton missiles wrapped in steel and glass and powered by forces that can end lives in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Marcus eases off the accelerator, his construction worker instincts screaming danger, as the sedan's driver, a kid who can't be more than 19, with dark hair falling across his forehead and hands that shake against the steering wheel, slumps forward, his face pale as paper and slick with sweat that catches the morning sunlight. "Daddy, why is that car driving funny?" Danny asks from the back seat, his voice carrying that innocent curiosity that breaks Marcus's heart, because it reminds him of all the questions Sarah will never get to answer, all the teachable moments that have become his alone to navigate. The sedan jumps the median with a sickening crunch of metal and screaming tires, careening toward the Sunoco station where Mrs. Chen waves from behind the register, her Tuesday morning smile freezing as she realizes what's about to happen and begins backing toward the rear exit with the survival instincts of someone who's lived through enough disasters to recognize the signs. Marcus yanks the Honda's steering wheel hard right, tires squealing in protest, as he pulls into the gas station parking lot, just as the sedan slams into pump number 3, with the sound of thunder and breaking glass and everything Marcus has ever feared about losing control. Time fractures into slow-motion fragments, the smell of gasoline spreading across hot asphalt like spilled blood, the sedan's crumpled front end steaming in the morning heat while antifreeze mixes with fuel in a toxic cocktail, the driver's arm hanging limp through the shattered window as blood pools on the door frame. Danny's Batman backpack slides across the Honda's back seat as Marcus hits the brakes, and for one terrible moment Marcus sees his own son's face in that unconscious boy, sees every father's worst nightmare playing out in real time. "Stay in the car, Danny," Marcus shouts, his voice rough with fear and determination as he throws open his door. But he's already moving, his work boots pounding pavement as the familiar weight of his tool belt bounces against his hip and muscle memory from 20 years of construction sites kicks in. The heat hits his face like opening a furnace door as flames begin licking at the pooled gasoline with hungry orange tongues. And Marcus thinks about Danny watching from the back seat, about coming home to an empty apartment, about all the ways a man can lose everything that matters in the space between courage and catastrophe. The driver, this kid who looks so much like Danny, might in 10 years. All sharp angles and stubborn chin lies unconscious against the deflated airbag, blood trickling from a gash above his left eye, while his chest rises and falls in shallow, desperate breaths. Marcus doesn't hesitate, because hesitation is a luxury he can't afford when someone's son is about to die, when the difference between hero and bystander comes down to the willingness to act despite the fear that tastes like copper pennies and sounds like his own pulse thundering in his ears. His hands find the door handle surprisingly cool despite the spreading flames, just as the fire reaches the gas tank with a whoosh of superheated air that singes his eyebrows, and the world explodes into orange light and deafening sound, throwing Marcus backward into a universe where everything he thought he knew about heroes and strangers and the price of doing what's right gets rewritten in fire and smoke, and the metallic taste of fear coating his tongue. The silence that follows the explosion feels heavier than the blast itself, broken only by the crackle of flames, consuming what's left of the sedan, and the distant wail of sirens cutting through the morning air, like a prayer answered too late. Marcus lies sprawled on the hot asphalt, his ears ringing with the high-pitched whine of damaged hearing, tasting blood and gasoline as he forces himself to move, because somewhere in the smoke and chaos, that kid someone's son, someone's Danny, is either alive or dead, and Marcus refuses to let it be the latter. He crawls through the debris field of twisted metal and broken glass, his construction-hardened palms scraping against the rough pavement, until splinters of safety glass embed themselves in his skin like tiny diamonds, leaving a trail of blood drops that evaporate almost instantly on the superheated asphalt. The boy lies 20 feet from the wreckage, thrown clear by the explosion's force, his leather jacket torn and smoking, but his chest still rising and falling, with the stubborn rhythm of youth refusing to surrender. "Tommy," Marcus whispers, reading the name stitched in faded blue thread on the jacket's breast pocket as he cradles the kid's head in his lap. Applying pressure to the worst of the wounds, while checking for broken bones with a methodical efficiency Sarah always admired in him during those long nights when Danny ran fevers and they took turns playing amateur medic. The boy's pulse is strong beneath Marcus's fingers, and relief floods through him like cold water as Danny's voice cuts through the smoke and confusion like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. "Daddy, Daddy, are you okay?" But before Marcus can answer, before he can reassure his son that sometimes the world explodes around you and you survive anyway, the thunder begins, not the rumble of storm clouds gathering over the valley, but the deep, bone-shaking roar of motorcycle engines, approaching like an army of mechanical beasts, awakening from slumber. A dozen Harley-Davidsons emerge from the heat shimmer of Highway 9, their chrome gleaming like weapons in the morning sun. Riders wearing leather vests, decorated with skull patches, and the words "Hell's Angels" stitched in Gothic letters that seem to pulse with barely contained violence. The lead bike, a massive black and silver beast that sounds like controlled violence and smells like freedom and danger, rolls to a stop just feet from where Marcus kneels, holding the unconscious boy, and its rider dismounts, with the fluid grace of a predator who's never had to question his place at the top of the food chain. Jake Morrison stands 6'4" in steel-toed boots that have walked through more fights than most men see in a lifetime. His graying hair pulled back in a ponytail that reveals the snake tattoo coiling around his neck like a promise of retribution. And when he removes his sunglasses, Marcus sees eyes the color of thunderstorms, and just as unpredictable. The other bikers form a loose circle around the scene, their silence more threatening than any words could be. Engines ticking as they cool in the summer heat, while Mrs. Chen huddles behind the gas station counter, and Danny presses his small face against the Honda's rear window with wide eyes that are taking in lessons about courage and consequences that Marcus never wanted him to learn this. "Young, step away from the boy," Jake commands, his voice carrying the authority of someone who's never had to repeat himself. But something in his tone catches a tremor that doesn't match the steel in his expression, or the reputation that makes grown men cross streets to avoid him. Marcus looks down at the kid in his arms, noting the stubborn jawline and the way his dark eyebrows furrow even in unconsciousness, then back at Jake. And suddenly the family resemblance hits him, like a physical blow delivered by an invisible fist. The same bone structure, the same defiant tilt to the chin, the same way their mouths turn down at the corners when they're fighting pain they refuse to acknowledge. "This is your son," Marcus says, not a question but a realization that changes everything. The words hang in the air between them like smoke from the burning car, and Jake Morrison, captain of the Devil's Highway chapter, man who spent 20 years building a reputation that makes grown men cross the street, drops to his knees beside Marcus with the desperate grace of a father who's just watched his worst nightmare unfold in real time. "Tommy," Jake whispers, his massive hands surprisingly gentle as he takes his son from Marcus's blood-stained arms. And for a moment, the infamous Hell's Angels patches and skull tattoos fade into insignificance, because all Marcus sees is another dad holding his boy and trying not to fall apart. "He was coming to see me," Jake continues, his voice cracking like old leather. "First time in 3 years, he wanted to talk to his old man, said he had something important to tell me. And I." The sirens grow louder, painting red and blue patterns across their faces as the ambulance rounds the corner, but Jake's eyes never leave his son's face. "You saved him," he says to Marcus. And those 3 words carry the weight of everything gratitude and disbelief, and the kind of debt that can't be measured in money or favors. Tommy's eyelids flutter open, brown eyes focusing slowly on his father's face, and he manages a weak smile. "Dad, I was gonna tell you. I got into college. Full scholarship. Mechanical engineering." Jake's tears fall freely now, splashing onto his son's leather jacket as the paramedics arrive and begin their careful work of checking vitals and loading Tommy onto a stretcher. Marcus starts to back away, to give this family their moment, but Jake's hand catches his wrist with surprising gentleness. "What's your name?" he asks. "Marcus Rodriguez," comes the reply. "And that's my son Danny." Jake looks toward the Honda, where Danny still watches through the window, his small face pressed against the glass, and something shifts in the biker's expression. "Your boy's got a good dad," Jake says simply. "The kind who runs toward danger instead of away from it. That matters." As the ambulance pulls away with Tommy stable and conscious, Jake reaches into his vest pocket and pulls out a worn business card. "Morrison's Custom Motorcycles," he says, pressing it into Marcus's palm. "You ever need anything, job, favor, someone to watch your back, you call me. A man who saves my son has my respect, and my respect means something in this town." The other bikers mount their Harleys and disappear back into the heat shimmer of Highway 9, leaving Marcus standing in the parking lot with Danny's arms wrapped around his waist and the smell of smoke and possibility hanging in the air, like a promise that sometimes, when the world explodes around you, what rises from the ashes isn't destruction, but connection. The recognition that heroism isn't about patches or reputation, but about the moment when one father looks at another and sees not a stranger, but a reflection of everything worth fighting for.